taken on a life of its own, hasn't it?
Yes, look, hi, sir, Neha, sorry. Let me get straight away onto this.
Yeah.
Uh, what has happened actually right now is talking points.
Hmm.
And we are looking at talking points all the time. What they call the baseball was a talking point. This is another talking point. So what happens is you get a frenzy into the Ashes series when there are a lot of talking points. And that's all this is. It's a storm in a teacup. If you look at the side which is right, it will say, yes, sir, we went by the rules. If you see the side which is wrong, it will talk about spirit. It's a never ending thing. We had it right from the time there was this bodyline, or even earlier. This bodyline series was started by England. Bodyline attack, I beg your pardon, was started by England. And right from then, we've had this. We've had the Indian team also struggle over there. Uh, and now this Australian side. But I think a lot of this is just talking points. The prime ministers have thrown themselves behind their teams because I think once you come to the match, you got to make your presence felt in some manner or the other. And I wouldn't take it seriously at all because if the teams have gone by the law of the game, the rules of the game, it's not that it was alien to Bairstow. Bairstow knew he could not transgress. He could have hung on for a little while longer, waited for the ball to go past him or go to the wicket keeper and settle down in the wicket keeper's gloves before moving. He knows very well. Had he been the wicket keeper, he would have tried the same thing. So I think it's just a storm in a teacup.
But the thing that stands out for me, Vedam, is that how the majority of the cricketing world is supporting Australia, other than the English fans and few non-English fans, which is actually refreshing to see, given that the world's always been against Australia. But here, clearly, Australia did nothing wrong.
I hate to say this, but I had put out a tweet earlier saying that when England is batting, it's against the spirit of the game to have a batting crease.
Yeah.
It's as ridiculous as that. There is a batting crease, there is a bowling crease, there are wickets, and
Yeah.
the laws of the game. It's not that you don't know all this, or it suddenly came up on you. And
Yeah.
I think England is just playing silly because I mean they lost it fair and square and
Yeah.
trying to peg it. But what was Bairstow doing actually? When you look at situational presence, he has to be aware of what is happening. And
Hmm.
he knows what is happening. He knows the laws of the game. He is not a greenhorn. He's been in the game for a long enough period, for a real long time, and he knows these things will happen.
Yeah.
And you can't go around blaming people, others. It is your mistake. You should not have left the crease. You left the crease, and you have to cop the blame. Now, to say that the Australians are cheats are, I mean, absolutely ridiculous. They played by the rules and they took the wicket by the rules. And look, it was also referred. It was not just the two umpires out there in the middle who handled it. It was
Yeah.
also referred. The third umpire also thought it was out. So what are they cribbing about? I don't understand it. You
Hmm.
have lost a wicket by your sheer carelessness, and you got to pay for it. There was a test match in which Mohinder Amarnath picked up the ball and he was given out. He picked up the ball to throw it, Mohinder Amarnath, the batsman. He picked up the ball to throw it back to the bowler, and they avoided it as if it was some live grenade thrown at them and appealed instead, and he was given out. I mean, Mohinder later confessed that he didn't know the rules. He confessed he didn't know the rules. He was playing for India. He was a test cricketer, and he said he didn't know he couldn't do that.
Hmm.
But here Bairstow knows it is wrong. What he has done is wrong. So I don't think he has to be pardoned at all. It is a gross error on his part, and that whatever lapse of concentration, lapse of memory, or whatever lapse you can call it, he had done it, and he has to pay for it. I'm surprised that they haven't gone after him. They ought to have gone after him rather than closing ranks and going after the Australians.
Do you feel like England has this sense of moral superiority, given that they are playing against a team, that is trying to rebuild their image after what happened 5 years ago in Newlands, the sandpaper gate? Do you get that sense that there is that narrative that somewhere there where England are trying to do this against this side because they can do it against Australia right now? Any other team, it would have been different, but you almost get that feeling, where they're being called cheats openly. Is that a narrative they're following?
I think the Australians played very fair.
Yeah.
even in that instance, when they were caught napping, and there were a lot of people who paid the penalty for it.
Yeah.
Somebody like Warner, or somebody, even the skipper, Steve Smith, they all lost their jobs. They were banned for a year, and they lost their contracts also with the IPL. So I think they paid the price for it. They made a mistake. 100% they made a mistake, and they paid the price for it. But to say that they made a mistake, so let's go after them now, is quite ridiculous.
Yeah.
Actually, England has to go after Bairstow. Bairstow is not a rookie. And, for what he did, they have to go after him, because he is the one perhaps who cost them that match at that critical juncture. At the critical juncture, get hung on, scored another 40, 50 runs. See, pressure does funny things to people, and I would like to believe that Bairstow cracked under pressure in this instance. They, he knows he has a big battle in hand, and you can't say you forgot the rules. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like Karna forgetting in the mantra at the crucial stage of the war, and this looks like that's what happened to him. But he can't claim that he's a Karna. He's no Karna. Sorry, but I think he made a dreadful mistake, and it's stupid on England and stupid on the part of their media to go after the Australians when actually they have to be going after their own guy.
Yeah, why I'm saying this is because Stuart Broad has spoken about this. He's talked of how what amazed me. This is what he says. What I told Australians I could not believe as we left the field at lunch was that not one senior player among them questioned what they had done. Ultimately, Pat Cummins is a great guy, and I would be amazed once the emotion settles if he does not sit back and think, I got that one wrong. Also, he's spoken about, this is what he's written in his column, where he's talked about how they're trying to create a new legacy as a team and how they've changed since the tour of South Africa in 2018. So he was angered by Australia's decision because he thought that that's what they were trying to do. So I do feel like there is that bit of narrative where they think that, oh, you know what? You shouldn't be playing by the spirit of cricket. But here is Johnny Bairstow, and I don't know if you've seen the video. I don't know the viewers who are watching this show, if they've seen this video, but there is a county match where Johnny Bairstow gets Smith Patel out. Just as Smith Patel is trying to come back, he's in the crease. Johnny Bairstow gathers the ball, and just when he thinks it's dead, as in, and he just lifts his back foot, and that's when Johnny Bairstow waits for exactly that moment and dislodges the bails. And then, of course, they go on to celebrate. So, like we've all been saying, the spirit of cricket is all good and fine as long as it suits you, as long as it favors you. Otherwise, we'd see most of these players walking after they've nicked the ball, but none of them do.
Yeah, it's like that Johnny Walker, keep walking. This is
Yeah.
exactly what Johnny Bairstow has to do. He's got to keep walking.
Yeah.
And see, look, if you look at the spirit of the game, let's talk about the spirit of the game, because England is talking about the spirit of the game. What is the spirit of the game? The spirit of the game is if the umpire gives you out, you go home.
Yeah.
You go out. You don't question it. How is
Absolutely.
that not the spirit of the game? I don't understand. He's been given out not just by the umpires. The third umpire had a look at it and just declared him out. So England too has to stick by the spirit of the game. That's the spirit of the game. You cannot question an umpire's decision again and again. You can question it once, you can question, and then the third umpire will decide, and then you have to go by the game, by the umpire's decision. England have not done that. The problem with England is, there is a self-righteousness about them, which is actually disgusting.
Yeah.
If they sit back and realize what they've been doing, not now, from donkey's years, they've been doing, like somebody said, wave Britannia, wave the rules. That's exactly what they're doing. They're just waving the rules, for every time. And then they claim, after waving the rules, they claim it's the spirit of the game. Come on, this is, it's gone a little too crazy. And whenever we look at it, what happened with Ajay Jadeja in England,
Yeah.
during that India-England series? They actually manhandled him, and then they claimed that they didn't have footage of that show. They said that that particular footage was missing, or that something went wrong with that CCTV camera and it couldn't capture it. So I don't think England plays clean at all. England plays a lot of dirty cricket, and they must understand that sooner or later it's going to get them. And I'm glad it's caught them in England in front of the English fans, though they will never accept. You saw what happened in the long room. What a disgusting experience that was. People who understand the game, people who know the game, people who understand the spirit of the game. You don't take it out on the players when they're returning. But this is
Absolutely.
exactly what England has done. So they have not transgressed the laws and the spirit of the game once. They have done it again and again and again and again. And for some reason, they're able to get away with it. I don't know why the match referee is keeping quiet. He has to go after these guys.
Now, this is exactly what someone's written. I'm going to read this out, Vedam. This is a perfect demonstration of what the spirit of cricket has always really meant. It means whatever benefits England. Whatever we, the dapper gentlemen in our red and yellow ties, as an English guy who's writing it, decide it is. But now the dapper gentlemen have lost their empire. No longer do they reign over us. India dictates terms in world cricket. The last president of the MCC was Sri Lankan. Australia's woke soft boy captain has run rings around a team of English schoolboys led by two Kiwis who've bullied them into masquerading behind a swagger nobody believes. And these are harsh words, but there is truth to it. And when you talk about what happened in the long room at Lord's, now if you take the spirit of cricket away, the dapper gentlemen don't just toot. The ties have been loosened, the top button undone, the veneer long gone. They scream, they boo, they foam at the mouth. Their loudest cries are reserved for Usman Khwaja. We know why, because that is the spirit of cricket. I've read a lot of, different opinions on this, but I feel like this is something that English cricket is dealing with. We've also spoken about that independent report, which talks of racism in English cricket, which talks of sexism, elitism, classism. It begins from that pavilion at Lord's. Maybe it's time to change that in English cricket. You cannot have these entitled MCC members shouting at players as they walk through that long room.
See, England has condoned this kind of nonsense from a long, long, long time. There was this guy called Donald Carr. I don't even know if you remember him. He is no more. He went as the captain of the MCC team to Pakistan. They kidnapped the umpire, took him to their hotel, made him drink, poured ice water on him. And then later, when the Pakistanis discovered their missing umpire was actually held over here, and they took him back, there was a big furore the next day. And what did the MCC do? MCC said it was a schoolboy prank. Do you kidnap an umpire and treat him like that way? Pour ice water over him and force him to drink? And this is what they did. And what did they reward that Donald Carr with later? They made him the chairman of the MCC. Now, Stuart Broad is talking. He should go and look at what his father did. His father was declared out in Pakistan. He sat down on the pitch and refused to go. The umpire declared him out. He said, "I'm not going. I'm not out." He sat down, and then he became a match referee. So, if you look at the way these guys have handled it, it's not just on the field, even off the field. MCC has done ridiculous things. You take, even when India was hosting the 1996 World Cup, when that was put to vote, Colin Cowdrey was the chairman of MCC. He refused to allow that to go to vote until and unless they finalized the 1999 host. He said England has to host the 1999 World Cup. Only then we will allow this to go through for a vote. And he was the chairman. They couldn't do anything. So it was a ridiculous situation where first they identify the 1999 host and then put the 1996 to vote. And this is how England has behaved off the field also. It's not just on the field.
Yeah.
Even their ECB or TCCB or whatever they used to call themselves, they also behaved ridiculously right through. It's not just, when it is a body line and when it's against Australia, these things get blown. It comes out into the press. But otherwise, when they handle Pakistan or India or a whole lot of things, like I gave an example about Jadeja and Dhoni and others during their series, Dhoni was forced to call back Ian Bell, after the luncheon break. Otherwise, it would have been chaotic.
Yeah, so India ended up losing that game, and nobody remembers that incident, but more about, what went into the results column. But at the end of the day, like we've been saying, spirit of cricket suits you. or works for you when it goes in your favor. That's when you cry about or whine about the spirit of cricket. Now, this whole row has turned diplomatic. It's taken a diplomatic turn because there are now shots being fired by the two prime ministers of the countries. The British and the Australian prime ministers, they have weighed in on the Bairstow dismissal controversy. Amid allegations of bad sportsmanship, cheating and verbal abuse, the political leaders of the countries have spoken in support of their teams. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak accused Australia of not playing in the right spirit of the game. The Prime Minister, a keen cricket fan, watched the game with Prince William. He said that he agreed with Ben Stokes, who said he simply wouldn't want to win a game in the manner that Australia did. But he also deplored the long room abuse directed at the Australian players. Now, his Australian counterpart, he was not going to sit back and just listen to Rishi Sunak. He has returned fire after saying that that he realizes the Prime Minister Sunak's disappointment is understandable, but he must not have had the same lessons that I got in primary school at St. Joseph's Camperdown. Stay in your crease. And then adds on, hope you're well, PM. So here you have it. At one point you thought that it was the British Prime Minister, because earlier on what the Australian Prime Minister had tweeted was this: I'm proud of our men's and women's cricket teams who've both won their opening two Ashes matches against England. Same old Aussies, always winning. Australia is right behind Elisa Healy and Pat Cummins and their teams, and they look forward to welcoming them home victorious. But after this is what he has written. Let's put that again for all our viewers, where Australian Prime Minister has told Mr. Rishi Sunak to stay in his crease. Prime Minister Sunak's disappointment is understandable, but he must not have had the same lessons I got in primary school at St. Joseph's Camperdown. Stay in your crease. Hope you're well, PM. So this is just, like I've said, this is taking on a life of its own. Jamie Alter also joins us on this. Jamie, your reaction to this political twist in this saga, and we've only seen two matches. There's still three more to go.
Absolutely. We were all talking on this very channel before the Ashes about how it'll be competitive, how we don't see draws, every match will give a result. It's almost like cricket has ended up being a sideshow. Just coming to the whole political side of it, if we can use a cricketing or a sporting term, I mean, the Honourable Prime Minister of England, Rishi Sunak, his recent form includes losing to Liz Truss. So it's not like he's on any solid ground here. There's a lovely piece in today's Guardian. I don't know if you've read it, and the main crux of the piece is that a prime minister who's soiled by the Rwanda policy now has time to offer lessons on ethics to cricketers, So it's just it's time anyone from politics joins in, weighs in. And here we have two prime ministers going back and forth. I mean, it's strange. I mean, it's just a sideshow, which, like I said yesterday, takes away from the fact that how Bazball is being poked and how Australia, especially Usman Khwaja, like I said, Usman Khwaja is showing them, you guys want to go around and first do what you want to do. I'm just going to play old school test cricket because I believe that gives us the best chance to win a cricket match. Can you imagine at Headingley, where Australia are going to be outnumbered man to man? It's already a very hostile place. Forget the Lord's room. You want hostile, go to Headingley, during the Ashes. We've heard of beefed up security. Now we have PMs talking. Just imagine if Australia go there and win 3-0, Where are these English jokers going to hide themselves? The fans, the pundits, the tabloids, the players. So what a fun circus we're watching as neutral observers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also feel like this was a direct reply to Rishi Sunak, because he started this all, Vedam. He was the first one. Yeah, he was the first one to say, you know what, I agree with Ben Stokes. And he was watching the match. He could have been a neutral observer, but of course he had to say something. And then Australian PM came with his reply. And, that's, I think, what the whole country, Australia would believe in, and I'm sure a lot of other cricket fans would too, right? Stay in your crease. Law or laws of cricket cannot overweigh the spirit of cricket. At the end of the day, it's a law that you've got to stay in your crease. You're out of the crease, you get out. And that's exactly what happened with Johnny Bairstow. Vedam?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Rishi Sunak also, I don't know if the social media, I was reading one of the social media posts, they're saying this is coming from a guy whose party guys were partying during the COVID. You know, when they were supposed to stay indoors, they were partying. And some were questioning his wife's taxations. And yeah, I mean, you know, once you open the Pandora's box, you don't know where it's going to take you, where it's going to head. And we are not even talking about cricketing matters. You know, England has to realize that it cheated in India with Vaseline. The Vaseline affair, once they were caught with that, somebody like Bishan Singh Bedi also lost his contract on that because he called them cheats when they used the Vaseline. Our board actually buckled down to the MCC at that stage and, you know, backed down. But Bedi didn't back down. He called them a cheat and he stuck to it. And he lost his contract with their county. So it's not that England are very clean and, you know, they play as per the spirit of the laws, spirit of the game, and everybody else, you know, violates it. You know, they make it look like, you know, they are all right. But I'm okay, you're not okay. That's their exact tone that they take time after time after time. And every series there is something or the other going wrong with them. When they were pointing fingers at Ashwin Mankading, Josh Butler, people were talking about how they cheated Sri Lanka. They took about 22 runs when they were chasing 96 odd or 100 odd against Sri Lanka. And the Sri Lankans were convinced that the non-striker was always leaving the crease, you know, hitting to long on and long off. So they have cheated right through. Every single series you can find somewhere or the other, they would have, you know, they would have stretched the laws. They said they stretched the law. That's it. But actually, it's downright cheating when somebody else does it, you know. Or if the most convenient is not in the spirit of the game. But I mean, actually, the prime ministers are wasting their time. They got to go and manage their countries which are in a mess rather than talking about cricket. Come and watch for half an hour and go back to your job.
No, but I do get where the Australian Prime Minister is coming from. I mean, yes, this is a team that is like I said, it's been trying to rebuild its image. They've obviously tried to change the narrative around the team after what happened 5 years ago, the sandpaper gate, and the fact that they're being called cheats for no fault of theirs, Jamie. They are in England. They are being abused. They are being vilified. They're Alex Carey, I mean, he's being booed. The whole team is being heckled in the long room at Lord's. So I understand where the Australian Prime Minister is coming from, where he says that, you know what, I'm going to support this team. They've actually done nothing wrong and they do not deserve this kind of vile abuse. And I also understand that England would have got the same in Australia, but in this case, it's slightly different. Given, you know, how hostile those MCC members were. And how this is their place of work. This is where the team has to cross this long room to go up to their dressing room. They do not deserve this kind of treatment. Nobody does. And I think that's where he's coming from.
Absolutely. And every time these visuals pop up, I frankly don't need the audio on to understand what it perhaps could be like for these guys walking, right? We spoke yesterday about the privilege that most of these people, in fact, all of these people who were shouting boos and things like cheat, same all this old cheating, let's get this straight, they did not cheat. This was not sandpaper gate. That was cheating. Yes, Australian cricket went through crisis, turmoil. They've tried hard to change the impression of what, even back then when sandpaper gate happened, one of the first major statements came from the Prime Minister back then. So if you look 5 years down the line, the current Prime Minister, like you said, he has to show solidarity. He has to come out in support of a team which is being widely vilified. Just to touch upon that issue of this team, you know, going through a transition, a post-sandpaper gate of trying to make a better image. the appointment of Pat Cummins as the captain was almost entirely based on his cricketing skill and the status with which he commanded in the dressing room. But it's also because Pat Cummins is seen as a very, very nice guy. He's not your typical Australian. And by typical, I'm talking about the ones which I grew up hearing about, and then the ones I saw, your Merv Hughes, your Alan Border, the ones who are in your face, the ones who are a bit nasty. There's an Australian term called mongrel. Pat Cummins doesn't have that. And before Sunday, day 5, 48 hours ago, probably the only criticism people had of Pat Cummins was that he spoke too much about certain social causes. So that man is now being painted as a villain by certain segments of the British tabloid, the British media. Come on, grow up. Vedam's already spoken very, very in depth about the kind of mistakes and the transgressions that British cricketers in the past have had. So there's no point going there. But I mean, this is not a crime. No crime was committed. The British cricketers that Vedam talked about, they've done far worse things. If a law is not broken, absolutely no need for all this hue and cry.
Okay. Now, Geoffrey Boycott, former England batter, he has asked for an apology from Australia. His quote is going to come up on your screens. And he says Australia need to have a think about what they did and make a fulsome public apology. That way it will redress the situation and everyone can then move on. Australia have now had time to think about what happened. We all make mistakes in the heat of the moment. People will think better of the Australians if they put their hand up and say, we got it wrong. That is the way to go. Let's see over the next few days if they are man enough to do that. I don't even know how to react to that. We've been talking about how England and England players seem to have this sense of superiority. They are entitled, and Sir Boycott seems to be another one in that list, Vedam. To see that he expects an apology for exactly what is what I'm wondering. Where has Pat Cummins gone wrong?
Absolutely, what you said is right. Where? That's the question. And these guys are living their own cuckoo land, because first and foremost, Australia have to accept that they made a mistake. They haven't accepted and they haven't made a mistake. The only people who think they made a mistake are the English guys. It's not Australians who think they made a mistake. In the sandpaper gate, yes, they knew they had made a mistake.
Yeah.
Even in that Steve Smith, Bangalore Test match, when he said he had a brain freeze, he was looking behind, hoping to get some sort of signal for a referral. At that time, he said it was a brain freeze. So they admitted that they made mistakes, So fair enough, and they got punished for it. But what is the mistake here? There is no mistake. There's absolutely no mistake. And maybe the mistake was of the groundsman. When England bats, you shouldn't have a batting crease. You should remove it. So how can you run out an English guy? That's crazy, So maybe you could follow some rules like that, saying that it is against the spirit of the game to have a batting crease when England is batting. But this Boycott has made enough mistakes of his own right through his life. For him to come now at his old age to come and give preaching is quite ridiculous. He's a guy who walked out of the series in India after he had crossed limit, whatever, his record. He came here only for the record. He made the record and walked out. And this guy he went and played in apartheid South Africa. He's forgotten all these things. Yeah. He's the guy who has to, say sorry all his life for what he has done. And he is turning now and pointing fingers at Australia. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I think the entire English approach to this problem is ridiculous. They have to say, yes, we lost fair and square. We were not good enough to beat this Australian team. We lost fair and square. Let's focus and concentrate on the next 3 tests and see where it takes us. Otherwise, this is going to drag them lower and lower. They need to stay focused. They believe if they try to raise these kind of things, then the team can rally around. That will not happen. In fact, it is the Australians who will rally around. And one small mention I want to make. That press conference that Pat Cummins handled at the end of the test was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. He handled some of the most hostile and aggressive questions. And I think those questions were actually downright disrespectful. the way they questioned him. But he always had a smile on his face.
Absolutely.
He never lost his cool and handled the media brilliantly. I think hats off to him for that.
Now, Australian batter Travis Head, he's also claimed that Johnny Bairstow tried to dismiss him in a manner similar to this stumping that ignited, the fifth day of the second Ashes test at Lord's. This is what Travis Head has to say. He goes on to say that Johnny Bairstow wasn't too pleased. And I sort of reminded Johnny last week I walked out of my crease at the end of an over. I quickly whipped my bat back and questioned Johnny on whether he would take the stumps. And he said, bloody oath, I would, and ran off. This is Johnny Bairstow. So like we've been saying, it's convenient as long as the spirit of cricket works in your favour, Jamie. This is exactly what Johnny Bairstow did with Marnus Labuschagne. This is exactly what he did with David Warner. And again, I'm not trying to say that Johnny Bairstow is a villain, but he's also not a saint. He's also not somebody who would not have done it had he been given a chance or an opportunity.
I think it's one thing, Maya, is fans, media, many people sometimes tend to see cricketers for something beyond what they actually are. Most cricketers down the years are just good at cricket. They're not really skilled at anything else. Most. There are some who got degrees, but by and large, cricketers, like many sports people, are just good at one thing. So sometimes we try to expect things from them which they're not going to give. And I think Johnny Bairstow falls exactly into that case. Yes, he tried to do that when he was a keeper, but again, Marnus Labuschagne was still, I would say in this case, he was standing outside of the crease. That is trying to gain an advantage. So I'm not going to give too much importance to that. But you look at that clip, which is now doing the rounds, when he was keeping for Yorkshire against Notts and Samit Patel. He's standing up to the stumps. You saw it. I've seen it. Most people have seen it. Samit Patel is beaten. Bairstow collects, waits, 3, 4, maybe 5 seconds. As soon as Patel loses balance, off comes. So this is the same Johnny Bairstow, right? And just very quickly, when it comes to spirit of cricket, I think all of us can agree here, probably 90% of the time, more or less, it comes up when an England player has been not allowed to bat or has been allowed to bat after given out. Why is it 90% of the time that English players, English media and pundits start to rally? We don't hear from Indians very often. We don't hear from Pakistanis. We don't hear from Kiwis. Kiwis have had probably the hardest luck in the history of modern cricket. They've never said a word, West Indians don't go on about it. Why is spirit of cricket brought up when an England batsman has been sent on his way or has been kept at the crease, like MS Dhoni gave a chance to Bell when he should have been out? Join the dots. I think we'll all get the answer.
Absolutely. Piers Morgan's another one who's, joined in the debate. He's got very strong opinions, Vedam, about what happened. And he says that what Australia did was worse than losing. And he's gone on to give the example of Trevor Chappell. I'm sure you'll remember that incident, where Greg Chappell gave him the ball and he bowled underarm. And he said that's all that he'll be remembered for. Similar to what Stuart Broad said to Alex Carey, that, in your career, this is all that you'd be remembered for getting Johnny Bairstow out in the way he did. And again, I just get the sense that it is English guys who always refer to the spirit of cricket when they think they've been wronged. They don't mind doing exactly the same when they are given a chance.
See, I can understand about the Trevor Chappell underarm, I'm saying why is because there were different rules in different countries at that time. In England, in the John Player League, you couldn't bowl out underarm. It was banned. But in Australia and India, it wasn't banned. Underarm was not banned. They could bowl it. So actually, the two teams were, that was South Africa or England or they were not used to this. They didn't understand that it was New Zealand. They didn't understand there was a different set of rules going on here because a lot of these New Zealand players were playing in England and they were used to an English set of rules where underarm was banned. But here, that's not the case. Here, worldwide, people know what the laws of the game are and what the rules are. It's standardized. It's not like each person follows his own rules and laws. So for him to compare that is quite ridiculous because at the end of the day, it's a game and everybody knows what is to be done, how it is to be played, you know. And if England has to go after anybody, it has to be Bairstow. How
Okay.
can you have a brain freeze at that time? You know,
Yeah.
he's got to stay in the battle. And I'm shocked that nobody has found out or nobody has pointed a finger at him saying it was ridiculous cricket on his part. Can you imagine if somebody like Rohit Sharma or Virat Kohli did what he did, walked out of the crease at that stage? They would have been quartered.
Yeah.
And here nobody is bothered about him. You know, they're pointing fingers at the others. You shouldn't have got him out. Why shouldn't I get him out? If I have the opportunity to get rid of him, I will do it. Which is what even Ashwin said when he got that run out. And there's nothing wrong with that. He's following the laws of the game and the rules of the game. You know, when things are not going your way, you talk about the spirit of the game.
Absolutely.
You know, otherwise you're happy with the rules of the game. I think England is just barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah, and also I think England are just trying to distract everybody from the fact that baseball is blown up in their faces. But this is former international umpire Simon Toffel, one of the best umpires in this game. He has said correct decision was made. England just didn't like it. For that ball to be considered dead after the over or even after the delivery, both sides need to disregard it is in play. Clearly, the fielding side hadn't. And I keep coming back to that as well. Jamie and I were discussing this yesterday, that Alex Carey actually collects the ball and in one motion throws it back at the stumps. He doesn't wait. Just like Jamie was talking about how Johnny Bairstow actually waited for Smith Patel to think that the ball's dead and turn around and lift his foot up. He actually, in one motion, underarm, throws the ball back onto the stump. So clearly, it was something, number one, that the team had been observing with Johnny Bairstow, which is what Ashwin refers to, and then decided to go for it after they'd seen that he was doing it again and again. So Johnny Bairstow, there's a lesson learned there. But Jamie, you were talking about Headingley. Now, after the backlash Australia have faced over the Johnny Bairstow drama, security has been increased in Yorkshire for any crowd trouble aimed towards the Aussie team at Headingley this week. That's right. The club and the police, they've had discussions to make sure that there is sufficient security arrangement to deal with potential trouble. The crowd at Lord's became hostile and abusive, with 3 MCC members suspended after the Australian players were booed and heckled in the long room at Lord's. Within 3 minutes of that happening, Western Terrace, which is known as one of the loudest stands in the country, was trending on Twitter, with fans saying it will get more hostile in Yorkshire. That's not all. Ben Stokes also spoke about how the feeling will be ramped up in Leeds after the second test. So, the Yorkshire Police is ensuring safety measures are good for the test match, given it's likely to be a partisan, hostile crowd at Headingley. Alex Carey's stumping of Bairstow, who is a local favourite in Yorkshire, is likely to make him a prime target over the next week. Things are going to only heat up from here on, Jamie. I feel like this is going to get uglier than it already has. Do you agree?
Yes, it is. And just to think, on day one of that test match, I think I mentioned this yesterday as well, those images of Johnny Bairstow picking up one of those utter nuisances of the Just Stop Oil protesters, picking him up under his arm like he's a piece of cardboard and throwing him over the boundary. If that's how the test match started, day one of the Lord's Test, 4 days later, things had taken a very, very ugly and dramatic turn. So, you've gone from talking about pre-test match situation, pre-test match security, from going literally 8 days ago, 7 days ago, talking about let's put a bit more security to stop protesters. And now you're talking about a far more genuine threat. That is a threat to Australian players. Even if it's just going to be verbal, Yorkshire is, yes, they have some vibrant fans, but it's got a history. It can be very, very hostile. And if Lords can turn hostile, imagine what's going to happen there. So let's hope that we have no situations, and let's hope that we get another thrilling test match that goes down to the wire, because at the end of the day, I think that's what every cricket fan, neutral or pro-Australia, pro-England, want to watch. And I'm pretty sure after what we saw in the Lord's long room, that very shameful incident. The ECB and Yorkshire Cricket will do their best uh, to put things right. Because let's not forget what Yorkshire Cricket themselves have been going through the last couple of years.
Yeah. You know what, Vedam? I would take the raucous crowd in Headingley any day over the pretentious crowd at Lord's in the long room, the MCC members. You know, at least these people make no pretensions about who they are. They are there to support one team. They, like Jamie said, they're loud, they can be hostile, but they are who they are.
I agree with you 100%. I was laughing, thinking, look at these long room guys, like you correctly said, so pretentious. It's so easy for that so-called veneer of respectability to be torn apart, and it brings out all their stark inner feelings. And it's not just three. I mean, this three must be scapegoats, but definitely what we saw on TV was about 30 or 40 of them. It was not three. It was much more than that. And if they are going to be fair, they said they'll have a fair hearing. They have to throw out at least 30 or 40, not just stop them from coming matches. They have to ban them from membership. Only then it makes some sort of sense. Like I said, not three, but at least 30 to 40. Yeah, but you're right. The Yorkshire crowd also knows the game. They know the game. They understand the game, and they are tough as nails. They're really tough as nails. But the problem now with England is England has created an aura that the Australians are cheating, and England is,
Exactly.
lily white or whatever they want to call themselves, and they are playing by the rules while the opposition is not playing by the rules. I mean, it's a wrong tale to actually sell. You're selling the wrong story because the story you have to say is that you're not good enough. The opposition is much better than you. They're playing better than you. And with all the hostility, the Australians have stayed focused. They didn't bother about the baseball or whatever you called it. They stayed focused on it. Even with all this hostility, they're staying focused on it. And I'm 100% sure that in Headingley, they will be as focused as they were in these two matches because they have shown they have shown a maturity, they've shown the ability to handle different situations far better than the English team has. England has come with one gear, and once that gear is not working, they don't know how to handle it. Whereas the Australians are doing a lot more, and they are a lot tougher. They are tough as nails, and they are not losing their cool. They might have some words might have been exchanged by Warner and
Usman Khwaja
in the long room. But otherwise, if you look at all the Australians, they are very cool. Even when they're getting hit, even when these guys are going at hammer and tongs, like Pat Cummins at the press conference. So I think they are doing things a little differently, and it's paying off. And England had better learn fast.
Jamie, do you see that support changing in case England lose the third test match as well? In terms of, I know that fans are in awe of baseball at the moment. 2 test matches in, some of the decisions, may not have gone in England's favour, but what this has done is it's made both the test matches enjoyable. People are talking about Ben Stokes' innings, his declaration, how this baseball makes everything exciting. But at what point will English crowds finally say, you know what, it isn't working?
It's a good question. There's a school of thought that says that maybe all this was drummed up a bit more than usual to detract from this very fact that you've raised, the fact that baseball isn't working, Now, Meha, if they didn't have 100% of the English fans behind them, now they definitely do because, look, Australia have been painted. And here the British tabloids and TV channels and certain sections of the British media have had a big role to play, right? The fans may have gotten riled up. The fans may have said something. I think the Lord's long room, or like you mentioned, are more at fault here. But now heading to Yorkshire, where anyways they enjoy, outright support, I think now everyone, who knows what cricket is probably going to be behind this team, despite, like Vedam said, the fact that not enough people are hauling up Johnny Bairstow. I mean, a lot of people have commented on air. Andrew Strauss. We saw Owen Morgan's reaction. A lot of people have said, that he was living in a bubble. He was being dozy, is what Jeff Boycott referred to as Johnny Bairstow being. But that said, I just think a little differently. I think now after all this, they're actually, and Brendan McCullum and Ben Stokes can talk about being galvanized. But this off-field narrative that the British media and the fans have now painted might actually work in their favor. Advantage Australia 100%, if not more. They need to just keep their wits about them. I think Australia landed here saying, you know what? Let these guys go on about baseball. Let them do what they want to do. We're going to rely on what works for us. And that's why they're 2-0 up and not England 2-0 up.
Absolutely. And I also see Australia as one team that will not be rattled by all of this. You know, any other team, visiting team, might just get overawed by all of this, might get overwhelmed rather by all of this. But Australia is one team. We know they don't get rattled by these things. Thank you so much, Jamie Alter and Vedam Jaishankar, for joining us here. It's always fun. It's a pleasure to have both of you here. That's it. Then on this special, what do you think of our show? Do let us know in the comment section below. And we get you all the latest from the world of sports right here on News 9 Live. So do subscribe to our channel and press the like button if you like our show. Goodbye. Thanks for watching.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2. No end in sight. Streaming now. US allies invade Iraq.
I take the fact that develops weapons of mass destruction.
America asks India to send troops to Iraq. India skillfully avoids America's Iraq trap.
भारत हमेशा से इराक मुद्दे का शांतिपूर्ण हल ढूंढने के पक्ष में रहा है।
In 2001, Al-Qaeda attacked the United States. Over 2,900 civilians were killed. The US retaliated by invading Afghanistan and toppling the Taliban for sheltering Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Mission accomplished, the US shifted focus to Iraq. President George Bush insisted Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, chemical and biological weapons which threatened the United States.
Embedded with the American troops, journalist Wael Awad saw the horrors of the war and American deceit at close quarters.
The uniqueness of the Iraqi war was that the American wanted to impress the rest of the world that the invasion was legitimate. They wanted us to show to the world that it has been done because Saddam Hussein had the weapon of mass destruction. And in fact, it was a weapon of mass deception that the Americans have taken us with them. You know, Colin Powell, when he was in UN and he was giving lies, faking news and saying Saddam Hussein have the weapon of mass destruction. Before he died, he said, I regret. It was the worst nightmare in my life that I have lied to the world. And I apologize. There's nothing, Saddam Hussein had nothing. They knew each bullet Saddam Hussein had. They knew each place of Saddam Hussein forces where it was. Everything was there on the map. We had the map.
I think it was wrong in the sense, you see the first Iraq, the war, when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, there's no question about it. It was under Security Council provisions, UN Security Council mandated and all that. But this was not even mandated by even many countries, European countries were not in favor of it. So it was a wrong decision, and I'm among those who feel that it should never have taken place. Because I feel sorry for the people there, that's about all.
The Indian cabinet urged the United Nations to intervene immediately and stop the Iraq conflict. When the parliament reconvened on April 7, 2003, it passed a unanimous resolution and deplored the military action taken by coalition forces led by America against a sovereign Iraq. Calling the military action and the attempt to change the government of Iraq unacceptable, it expressed anguish and deep sympathy for the people of Iraq.
By May, the US had defeated the Iraqi army. President Bush had pronounced mission accomplished on an aircraft carrier. A few months into the war, the US realized that its invasion lacked legitimacy. So in May 2003, they asked National Security Advisor Brajesh Mishra, who was visiting Washington, if India could send troops to Iraq. In June 2003, Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani visited Washington. Now, President Bush is believed to have asked point blank whether India could send troops for peacekeeping. He also promised to do some blunt talking with Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf on the issue of cross-border terrorism.
Since this was an illegal invasion, United States were very keen to get India on board.